Ah, yes. Let's get some Thief build for Zerg. Yeah, I want to play some Thief. Where's the Thief build? I don't see it. Huh? While staff daredevils may not be as team oriented or do as much damage as, say, a Scourge or a Staff Weaver or a Power Hammer Revenant, they still have a purpose within Zergs. And the premise of this is that in World vs. World Zerg gameplay, you basically just spam AoE and you hope that, unless your Zerg is very coordinated, that you all do it on the same spot. And usually people just hit the closest target because that helps you to coordinate without really communicating. Because if you just tab the next target, then you'll all be on the same target. And that basically results in you hitting the enemy front line. And the enemy front line is usually built around survival. So it's usually not that efficient for getting downs, it's just really efficient for doing damage. However, a Staff Daredevil doesn't just tab through the closest target. They actually get into the enemy backline and can survive with the amount of dodges that they have while also pressuring key targets. So their damage is not as high, but it's more precise and more valuable because it hits the right place at the right time. So a Staff Daredevil also has a little bit more choice to survive. So if you get rolled up upon by, the enemy Zerg, as a Staff Weaver, you're going to need really good positioning to survive. And obviously that means Staff Weaver is a little bit more skillful, and that is probably true. But a Staff Daredevil can have sort of poor positioning and still survive just by spamming evades. So there is a benefit there. I take Bounding Dodger as a Daredevil, and that changes your dodge into a Leap Finisher, which will give you a damage modifier for 15% more damage 4 seconds after you dodge. So you pretty much have permanently 15% more damage, which is pretty good. Currently though, the Leap Finisher is bugged on this, so whenever you use your dodge, you actually won't get the Leap Finishers, and that's pretty bad. But it is a bug and it will get fixed. But what that means is if the gameplay is, I'm struggling to survive, it's only going to be easier when the bug is fixed, because when you have a Leap Finisher on your dodge and you're in a Zerg, there's going to be combo fields everywhere. And that means you're going to be getting effects that can give you a lot of sustain. So like when you leap through a water field, that will heal you. And just the amount of effects that you can get, like you go through a ice field, you get an ice aura, which will give you 10% less damage and chill foes who hit you. So there's just so many ways to gain sustain just passively, because you're constantly spamming out your dodge, which means you're spamming out Leap Finishers. So it's really good in Zerg gameplay. And then I take Staff Master. This is a double staff build, so you will always gain the 120 bonus power from wielding a staff. So you've got a lot of extra power here, and you also gain 2 endurance per initiative that you use. So this build has quite a bit of initiative gain with the trickery trait line. So stealing will give you initiative, and swapping weapons will give you initiative. So since I have 2 staves, whenever I swap my weapon, I will just gain 3 initiative. So I'm basically just camping staff, but I'm giving myself the ability to gain more benefits when I swap my weapon. In Daredevil, you also have Escapist Fortitude. I get most of my Condi Cleanse from this because there's a 1 second internal cooldown. Whenever you evade an attack successfully, then you will remove 1 condition. So because of this, I'm allowed to not go for cleansing sigils, which you'll see later on the reasoning for this. Then you have Weakening Strikes. So every time you dodge, you will give weakness on your next attack. You're dodging quite a lot, so you're giving weakness quite a lot. And you'll do more damage and take less damage from weakened foes. And then you have Trickery. So this is where you gain most of your initiative. And because initiative will give you endurance, it gives you defense as well, because whenever you use initiative and you're gaining a lot of initiative, you're going to be gaining back dodges, which is going to give you more damage. So it kind of like is this feedback loop with itself. But I have Thrill of the Crime. This will give swiftness and fury to your allies, and a little bit of might, but you don't really need the swiftness because you're in acrobatics. And the fury is kind of nice, though you're really not going to need it. So it's basically just team support. You're giving fury to your allies. If you really wanted to, you could take the Caltrops on dodge, which will give a little bit of cripple, and you are dodging a lot, so you are putting down these Caltrops quite often. But I find that it doesn't really give you that much of an effect. So, I mean, there's really not many good choices here. And then you gain extra initiative, that's always good. And here I take Trickster. So usually you take Bountiful Theft because the boon strip is really good, and you could take this still, but I like Trickster because it puts your heal skill on a 20-second cooldown, and it gives you that extra Condi Cleanse. Now, I have a lot of Condi Cleanse now because I have Escapist Fortitude, I have Signet of Agility, and then you have Trickster. So you have plenty of Condi Cleanse. If you really wanted to, you could take Bountiful Theft, but I have 3 tricks, and lowering their cooldown and giving me extra Condi Cleanse is pretty nice, especially because this is not a Deadly Arts version. So Deadly Arts, you would be taking Improvisation, which would lower your cooldown. So there's actually going to be 2 variants of this build. You have this version, and then I'll show you the Deadly Arts version right after. But yeah, I take Trickster because that's going to increase your survivability, and it's just going to allow you to evade more and to just stay in fights longer. It doesn't perform the role of focusing targets as well. So I spoke about earlier how as a Daredevil you want to be focusing key backline targets. The Acro build is more for just staying in with your front line and just kind of like training with them. And then lead attacks are going to get more damage for initiative spent. So that's going to be more synergy with your initiative. And you have quick pockets. So you gain 3 initiative whenever you swap weapons. So you just want to swap weapons off cooldown pretty much. And then in acrobatics, you have swiftness whenever you dodge. So you don't have to worry about swiftness ever. You'll have permanent swiftness. You gain vigor when you use a healing skill, and that's 10 seconds, and your withdrawal gives you a 20-second cooldown, so it's like half uptime just from this trait. And then whenever you successfully evade an attack, you gain 3 vigor. So Feline Grace is kind of like permanent vigor if you're always dodging, but you're not always successfully evading, so it's sometimes not permanent vigor. So I like to take Vigorous Recovery because Instant Reflexes is a 300-second cooldown, but if you really wanted, you could take Instant Reflexes because the times that it saves your life is probably better than the times where you get like an extra dodge or 2 here and there from having the extra vigor uptime. But to be honest, I like just having Vigorous Recovery because it puts more choice in my hands rather than out of my hands. So I mean, you can choose whichever one you want, but I feel like the insurance on my vigor uptime is probably better. You can rely on just having Feline Grace, but then you have to successfully evade an attack, and if someone isn't hitting you, it can drop, and yeah, and then if you lose your vigor uptime, then you lose your dodges. Even if you don't need to dodge anything, you want to be doing damage because your dodges, as we know, give you damage. So it's like, if you're being aggressive, then you're not really evading anything, so you're losing damage. So it's like, yeah, it kind of, this gives you more damage in a way too. So I just like this better. Then you have Guarded Initiation. You can choose Swindler's Equilibrium if you want the extra power. This will give you 120 power if you're not wielding a sword. So it's just an extra damage modifier. You can take Hard to Catch, which is whenever you get CC'd, you'll stun break. So you can take Instant Reflexes and Hard to Catch if, you know, this is a pretty easy to play build, and you can make it even easier to play if you take these 2 traits. But I took Guarded Initiation because I'd like to remove weakness or other condis. Honestly, it's not an amazing trait, so you can just go with the damage modifier, but I just went with Guarded Initiation because I don't want to have conditions on me. Then you'll get effectiveness of your vigor increase, so instead of having 50% increased dodge regeneration from vigor, you'll have 75. So it's pretty nice to have that vigor uptime, as I said. And then you have more choices here, so there's a lot of choices you can actually play with this build. There is Assassin's Reward, which will give you more healing. Upper Hand kind of gives you similar amounts of healing with the regen. The thing is, if you're already getting regen from your Zerg, like you've got Tempest and stuff healing you, you're probably not going to want the regen, but you do gain the extra initiative every 5 seconds if you successfully evade an attack. And yeah, while 1 initiative every 5 seconds isn't amazing, it does scale right with lead attacks and Staff Master, so it's just really nice synergy. So I like Upper Hand, but you can take Assassin's Reward, which will give you a little bit more self-sustain in those very team-oriented situations where you already have regen. And then Don't Stop, I don't really like, because you already have ways to remove Immobilize. You have Roll for Initiative, you have Withdraw, you have Staff 3. so you don't really need Don't Stop. But if you really were dealing with like chill and cripple a lot, it could be okay to take this, but really I feel like you just get more from upper hand. Those are the traits of the normal, just like Zerging, kind of like cookie cutter build, but you could change to Bountiful Theft and Sleight of Hand, and then take Deadly Arts and take Improv, Even the Odds, and Mug. And what this would do is would allow you to focus single targets a little bit better, and you could backline anti-carry a little bit better. However, you could probably do the same thing with like a dagger pistol build, so I feel that it's better for you to build towards surviving in Zergs rather than to just killing one target, because you are still pretty good at killing one target. But if you really wanted to specialize more, you could take Bountiful Theft, which would remove protection and a lot of that stuff. The equipment that I take, now here's where a little bit of the theory craft comes in. So the equipment is full Valkyrie gear. So I have like 19,000 health. I have a little bit of Cavaliers on my trinkets. So I take 3 Cavalier trinkets. I take the ring, the amulet, and the back piece, just because you gain a little bit of toughness here and there. The meta in World v World is power, so if you just run full Valkyrie, you are going to be very squishy even though you have a lot of health. And having 19,000 health, 18.9, is probably good enough. So at some point you want to take some toughness, and the point is basically you don't want to take any precision, because all of your crits are going to be coming from Vision Sigils and the Daredevil rune. So I get as much power and ferocity as possible, so it feels like a berserker build, which is very nice because you want to be doing a lot of damage. But the Cavalier kind of reduces your power and ferocity a little bit. Well, only your power, because the main stat is toughness on Cavalier instead of Valkyrie, which is the main stat is power. So you do lose a little bit of power there. But if you're running Staff Master or even Swindler's Equilibrium, you could gain a lot of that power back, and you could still be very survivable with that amount of, it's a little bit of toughness. But the thing is, when you have no toughness, you're really squishy, and when you have a little bit of toughness, you actually gain a lot more because of how toughness scales exponentially. So when you start giving yourself a little bit of toughness, you see a lot more value at first, and then when you build like full toughness, you start seeing less gains of reduction per toughness. So I just like a little bit of toughness on the build. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. You just take full Valkyrie with a little bit of Cavalier, and then you have Daredevil rune, which gives you more power, more toughness, and then it gives you a guaranteed crit whenever you dodge. Now, you also have energy sigils, double energy sigils, so whenever you swap weapon, you're gaining 3 initiative, you're gaining 1 dodge, and you're gaining the vision sigil effect, which makes all of your attacks for 3 seconds crit. So this is really good because there's a difference between Daredevil rune and the vision sigil. So if I go in combat here and I dodge, I will gain the Daredevil rune proc. Now I will crit, but I will only crit once. As you can see there, my vault only crit 1 target. So it's pretty good for focusing 1 target. But if you're in like a massive Zerg, you want to be critting multiple targets. So how Vision Sigil works differently is that if I swap weapons here, all of my attacks will crit. So I can do like a double vault there, and both of those crit because the Vision Sigil was still active. So how you want to use the Vision Sigil is like when you know there's like a huge cleave coming, maybe you can delay your weapon swap, and then you don't want to dodge while you have your Vision Sigil up because you're already 100% critting, so you don't need the Daredevil proc. So what you do often is you'll dodge and then vault, and then maybe you'll swap weapon and then vault, and then you can dodge vault again. And that's pretty much how the build works. You just press your dodge key and your 5 key, and that's pretty much it. Now you will have more dodges than you will have initiative, so oftentimes I dodge when I have the Vision Sigil up anyways, so really the playstyle doesn't matter too much around your, which sigil you have active or your rune you have active. I generally just spam. That's pretty much all you do. Is you just spam, and you swap weapon off cooldown, and you just dodge in 5, and that's pretty much it. You just swap weapon, dodge, and land your vaults. Vault is a kind of difficult skill to land on a specific target if it's moving around, so you want to get pretty good at leading on where the target's going to go. Like if they're just standing still, then it's really easy to land, but if they're moving, it's very hard to land. Now you do have other skills. Your staff auto attack will be a reflect on the 3rd auto, so that's very useful. If like a ranger is shooting at you, you can get up in their face and auto attack at them, and they might even knock themselves back sometimes. You have weakening charge, which is actually pretty good with the Vision Sigil because it is a multi-hitting attack, so it doesn't scale very well with the Daredevil rune because only one of them will crit. But if you swap weapons, you can use weakening charge like 3 times and get the value out of it. So generally what I do is if I'm in a situation where I really need to evade, I do stick to vaulting, but if I don't need to evade, what I'll do is I will swap weapon for the Vision Sigil and just spam weakening charge. And that will be AoE slightly, not as AoE as vault, but if like you're attacking one target, you can weakening charge and kind of stick to them and do quite a bit of damage for a low investment, because vault is double the energy or the initiative as weakening charge. So it is kind of good to use with Vision Sigil. Then you have debilitating arc. This is really only useful for removing immobilize from you, but you have plenty of ways to do that already, so I generally don't use it. It's pretty expensive for how low effect it is. And then you have Dust Strike. Dust Strike is just good for when you're out of cooldowns and you want to still contribute, but you don't have enough to survive going inside, but you may have initiative. So like if I'm on the side of the Zerg, I can do like a weapon swap for the proc there, and then I'll do like crits on Dust Strike. So you can just spam out your initiative real quick with the Vision Sigil and then back off until your weapon swap comes off cooldown, and then swap again, and then just spam out a lot of Dust Strikes, and then you can wait again. So it is a pretty good skill for Zergs, because when you're not doing your normal, monkey rotation of just spamming your dodge in 5, then you can kind of safely from the side use Dust Strike. It is a 600 range, so it's not that far, but it is safer than all of your other abilities. Then you have Withdraw. This is just pretty much mandatory on any bound thief build because you don't run dash, so you don't have a lot of immobilize removal. And you have Shadow Step. That's pretty much mandatory on every thief build. You want to be using that to play very aggressively into Zerg. So like say this is a Zerg over here and I see like this is my target. I want to Shadow Step onto them and then vault on them maybe a couple times. And then if the Zerg changes target to me, I have a very safe shadow return to get out of them. So in that way you can use it very aggressively, or you can just save it as a stun break because your only other stun breaker is roll for initiative. It is a 40-second cooldown, so you want to be careful, because if you are immobilized or you are stunned, you can't dodge and then you become very vulnerable. And then you have Signet of Agility. This will just give you Condi Cleanse and a little bit of extra dodging if you really need it, and it gives your team that effect too. So Condi cleanses your team and gives them dodges. So I said earlier that this doesn't really give any team support, but you do give Fury and you do give a little bit of Condi Cleanse and evades to your team, so it is sort of useful in Zergs. And then finally you have Roll for Initiative. This will give you 6 initiative, which as we know, initiative gives you more dodges because of Staff Master and more lead attack damage. And it'll just give you a dodge, a stun break, and Condi Cleanse. So it's just a really high effective and value skill. And then you have Dagger Storm. Dagger Storm, you want to be using that with your Vision Sigil up. So you get in combat and you know, okay, I want a Dagger Storm inside their whole Zerg, right? It does kind of like a evade effect, so you got to be careful though, because there are a lot of lines and terrain created by like Ellies and Guardians, like their staff, unsteady ground, or line of warding. You got to be careful because Dagger Storm will get interrupted by those if you don't have stability. So you're not invulnerable while you're Dagger Storming. You can be interrupted by like terrains or even like static fields. So you got to be careful with that. But basically, you do want to like Dagger Storm inside the enemy Zerg, and you'll just swap weapon for the Vision Sigil. Then you'll stand inside them, and it can do a decent amount of damage. It didn't really do that much there because it wasn't bouncing that much. But when you're inside the enemy Zerg, you want to kind of like stand still so you don't get interrupted by any line of warding or whatever, because if you don't move, then you can't pass through one of them. As long as you're standing within a decent amount of them, and it'll just bounce through them and do tons of damage. So Dagger Storm gets you quite a bit of damage for like, if your team is like, you really want to do the bomb right now, Dagger Storm is what you want to be doing. And then you do have Swipe. Swipe is an unblockable steal. You're not really going to get that much from it because your trickery traits aren't, you don't have any steal traits really. So you just kind of do this off cooldown to give yourself initiative and to give your team fury. And as I said before, you can get yourself a nice stolen ability sometimes. Some of the stolen abilities from the NPCs in World v World give you like high damaging attacks, and they're like single hit. So what you can do with that is, say like if I had stolen the I think there's like a tooth stab, and it has like a 2000 base damage, which is like a vault basically, and it's like a very fast melee attack. What you can do is you can make it crit by dodging with the Daredevil rune and then use the tooth stab. So you get a lot of damage from your stolen ability sometimes. And as I said, the warrior stolen ability is really good too, because you can get the Vision Sigil and then you can just whirl on top of like bomb choke points. So yeah, that's pretty much the build. So here's a little bit of a Zerg fight. What I do in combat is basically I combine my dodge key with a vault, and then I'll do a dodge and then like a heal skill, and then I'll go back to dodge vault, dodge some kind of other evade, then I'll swap weapons and stuff like that. So you want to pre-plan ahead what your rotation is going to be so that you don't run out of one resource too fast, and that you can keep your evades rolling. So that's really the only thing you need to think about, and that's really important because if you do manage to get your evades chained very well, it allows you to survive and jump into the back lines like I just did there, and that can be really annoying to the enemy Zerg because if they just ignore you, well then you're going to start killing their back line. But if they counter pressure you like they kind of did there, then my team can kind of just roll through them because they're wasting stuff on someone who's, you know, evading. So if you like the video, give it a like and subscribe for more. And of course, comment down below what you guys think about the build, and I will see you next time.